This is not really about the future, this is really about the now. The presentation I'm going to show you is really what we're thinking is the business today and what we're really trying to build out as a company. But I work at RGA, and I've been there for 15 years, and long before I joined, there was this crazy founder, Bob Greenberg, and his brother, Richard, who created this amazing company that really from its inception was pegged to technology. And what they would do is they would ride a technology wave. They would find something that was an emergent technology, and they would ride it for about a decade. And it's really about 10 years before a technology starts from being emergent and really important to completely adopted and almost commodity. And then you got to get into something new. And so they've had this very crazy business model of reinvention in these cycles, and we do this every 9 years. And so the firm was founded in '77. It was one of the pioneers of the visual effects industry. So this is back in the time when computers weren't used in the filmmaking process at all. And by the end of that 9-year cycle, visual effects was rampant. Every movie had, hardcore visual effects in it. In the mid-'80s, they really rode the wave of the digitization of production, and they probably created the very first digital production company. And again, they rode that wave. At the beginning, they were inventing the technology. By the end of that 9 years, you could just go buy it as off-the-shelf hardware and software. And luckily, right around when that happened is when the web emerged. And so there was this opportunity to completely reinvent the company, getting away from production and reinventing as an agency for the first time. And so we did that, and in the middle of that was the whole dot-com era and the dot-bomb, and there was a great period of growth and then a bit of contraction. And it was after the dot-bomb that I think RGA's business really started to take off, because we had a much broader ambition at the time, which was the reinvention of the agency business. As we looked at the agency world, we saw, to the point Jason just made, a lot of companies that weren't taking any risks, that were still doing stuff the way they did it back in the Mad Men era. They hadn't really changed or evolved, and more of the money was flowing away from, I would say, more traditional forms of media and into digital. So it was this great growth period where we quadrupled or quintupled in size, and that time period became more and more global. Right now, we think we're in something called the connected age. And this is not really about RGA. This is really about what's happening in the lives of consumers. So if you think of the digital age as something that might have started around mid-1990s with the invention of the web, over the period of the next 10 or 15 years, 20 years, we see the rise of all these technologies to the point where everything is now infused in our everyday life. So more and more notion of connected technology. We're all walking around with these smart devices that keep us connected, and more of our lives are playing out inside of that technology, for better or worse. I won't make any judgments on whether that's a good thing or not. It's just a fact. And so in the connected age, there's a couple of major disruptions that are happening, and we're building our business around that major disruption in the connected age, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. I think it's important, this is what Jason mentioned, we did win Agency of the Year this year in Ad Age. I think this might be a recognition, finally, that digital has won. It's no longer a question of whether or not it's like this emergent thing. It's now really the way that lives are playing out, by and large. And this is actually the first time that an agency like RGA, that comes more from the digital side of the business, has ever actually won Agency of the Year. We've won Digital Agency of the Year many times, but it's the first time that one of these major trade publications has given a company like ours this great honor. So what is the connected age? We see 3 major disruptions happening simultaneously, and they're all related. They're all happening because of technology, but they're all a little bit different, and there's a great opportunity to actually build a business in each area. So the first one is a business disruption. There's a disruption happening in commerce, and there's now a disruption that we're starting to see in communications. So the business disruption that we see is this race that's on right now, and this might become the battleground of the 21st century. Every company's out there to try to figure out how to create the connected home, the connected car, connected healthcare. Everything's about creating connected products and services, and that's very different from the way that business operated prior. I'll talk a little bit about all the legacy companies, all the Fortune 500 companies that many of us work on behalf of. They weren't trying to do this. They were trying to do something very different. But this is now the race now for just about every company in every business category. So you could build a business just around helping companies do this. But there's a simultaneous disruption in commerce, this rising expectation on behalf of all of us that everything we want is just on an app that we can just procure with a click, whether it's a car coming to pick us up, or it's our dinner arriving, or just the way that we shop at traditional brick and mortar. So this whole rising expectation around omni-channel and how we buy things. You could build a whole company just around that, and you'd probably do pretty well if you're any good at it. And we see this third disruption, which is the transformation of just even basic advertising. We don't really think that advertising's changed very much, and I'll talk about, I think all of us know how ads are made nowadays, but there's been this huge transformation in culture, and we see this as a major disruption that there's now an opportunity to build new agencies around just in terms of how we create ads, and I'll talk about that. I'm going to just focus on business disruption and communications. We'll ignore the commerce thing today. So let's start with connected business. This is how most of our clients look. The red dot is a consumer, and the black dots are all the different products and brands that they've built over the years or acquired or invented to chase after us as consumers. And it could look like this with Coke. Coke started in 1886. It was invented by a pharmacist in Atlanta, Georgia. So it was one product that was sold in this one pharmacy. And over the course of many, many decades, I think Coke's now almost 130 years old, they have over 3,500 different products and brands. That's how they grew. They kept inventing a new product or a new brand to chase after more and more different customer segments along the way. And that's called horizontal integration in economic language. So this is pretty much how every major client is organized, and this is how they grew. And this was great for the agency business because every time they invented a new product or brand, that became somebody's scope of work to go make ads about it. And so we all grew in parallel. Our industry grew in tandem with the rise of these horizontally integrated companies like Coke. The other business model that I think was unique to the 20th century is called vertical integration. So there's some companies that actually don't make a lot of different products. What they do is they make like one thing, but they figured out a way to squeeze out every single inefficiency or cost along the way to making that one thing, and they typically own every stage of the supply chain, and that might be something like an ExxonMobil, a big gas company. They don't have a whole lot of products. They have this one thing that they sell. No, they source it, they have the oil wells, they have the refineries, they have the ships that move it all over the world, and they even have the retail stores that sell it.